Hi, I'm Kerry Cassidy from Project Camelot, and I'm here with Kameran Fally, and we're going to be interviewing him for the second time, which is really very wonderful because he's a fascinating individual and he has a lot to share, as he did last time, and this is a great opportunity for us to be here in person with you again. What I want to say about him is that he comes from a political family, and they are advisors to Britain, to the Middle East, and to countries that are doing dealings in the Middle East on a regular basis. They have been for, from what I understand, maybe even centuries, generations, and that he himself resigned a position in the banking sector, and you were working at a high level and with very sophisticated financial software, if I understand. You have a good background in that as well. You also have a degree in physics, and you were also a religious scholar.
Yes.
And Kurdish, is that correct?
Yes.
By nationality. So at this moment, we're going to assume a lot of people will see the other interview, but I'm going to ask you, Kameran, if you could give yourself a little bit more of a background here so that people that haven't seen the other interview can be up to speed very quickly.
Our family has always been involved in helping the local either governments or tribes or establishments to invest, to do their work in our countries. And in my side, on a personal level, when we ran away from the Iran-Iraq war, and there was a wholesale deportation of the Kurds from Iraq to Iran, we decided to pack up our stuff, leave our belongings and business, and just basically run away to wherever it was safe. We came into the UK. The UK at that time was supporting Saddam, so we had for over a decade issues with the government because they wanted for us to work with them, and we basically said no, we are neutral. On a personal level, I went into Manchester University, finished physics. I also done a lot of astronomy. I've also went into religious institutions and went through all the studies that comparative religious done. And from then onwards, I went into both assisting politically the governments that were coming in after Saddam, working against Saddam actively. Then when the governments came in, working with them and helping them, helping them in establishing some, fixing some issues with elections on my level, helping in certain banks, large banks open in Baghdad and Iraq and opening the market, doing something currently it has been now established, which is give a credit rating to Iraq. So a lot of push on my side to get that done. Now it has been done.
Oh, okay.
So they get like a B plus.
All right.
Which is a very, very good news. But meanwhile, as a family, we are still working very strongly against the ISIS problem that's currently taking place.
Yes, and actually, because I have just come from Turkey, I'm very interested. And of course, you will know about the bombing of, I'm not even sure how you say it, Palmyra? You know?
Yes. When you look at Palmyra, I think it's something like that. When you look at what ISIS is doing, you realize that it's nothing to do with all their stated aims. When you just look at it methodically and take away what they say, you realize that what they're doing is they are removing every historical item that exists, which means somebody is paying them to remove history, to clear out history.
Right. But why and who?
Well, in order to be back in control of Babylon again, you need to get rid of every aspect that could change the history to be against you. Now, the only remaining country that wants, or the only remaining institution that are still interested in this and that era is Israel. So, and it's not Israel per se, it's those who are behind Israel, who have a purpose in Israel. And anybody could ask, why would Israel be an issue? Why couldn't they just stay where they are? Why would they need to expand and doing all that stuff? It's because people will need to figure out why Israel was set up in the first place. And the last time we talked about the 3 world wars, yes?
Yes.
So we talked about the First World War dealing with removing ruling families. We talked about the Second World War removing governmental institutions or government structures where people could rely on that. The Third World War was religion. And the last time we talked about how the Shiite came in and the Muslim side, how it affected the religion. But we have not talked about the other parties, why the religion got involved and what we're going to do with it. If we deal with the other parties, the 2 major parties which are getting involved, well, first of all, look at the Islam. The other side, non-Shiite, is the Sunni part.
Right.
So the institution that manages that is Azhar. Azhar is the religious institution in Cairo, in Egypt.
Okay.
So they've infiltrated that. They tried to use the Muslim Brotherhood to infiltrate that. But the problem with that, they failed. They didn't get it quite 100%. It was because the infiltration of Cairo, or the Azhar, which is the religious institution equivalent to Vatican, they were using Muslim Brotherhood, but the money of the Saudis.
Yes.
And the money of the Saudis is from the Wahhabi. So when you have the Wahhabis not working together with Muslim Brotherhood at some stage, then you got a confused message from Azhar. So they didn't do their job correctly in managing Azhar, was because they had 2 paymasters in that institution.
Okay.
The Wahhabis and the Muslim Brotherhood. So they didn't have a coordinated plan to take over Azhar. So now Azhar is taking back control and getting rid of Muslim Brotherhood and getting rid of the Wahhabi infiltration that's taking place.
Okay.
So that is the Muslim part.
Okay, who is left?
Then you have the Christian and the Jews.
Uh-huh.
In the Christian, they basically worked with the Vatican side. And in the Vatican, the one that manages it is the P2 Lodge, the Freemason part.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that we can talk about a little bit later.
All right.
The infiltration, how far is that going? Then what you have is the Jewish part. Okay, because in order for them to go into the world, they needed long-term experienced people and those who would come and give allegiance to them. So they looked at a minority, and the minority they used or chose from was the Jewish minority. So they came into the Jewish sect and said, okay, how are we going to control it, make it fight with the others, and then give allegiance to us? Mm-hmm. And the only way you can do that is if you have their religious institution equivalent to the Vatican, equivalent to Azhar, to come and give the edict saying that the Jews are now working for the world government. The world government is now kosher. Because at that point, whatever the world government does, there are lots of parties, and not all of them will say that the world government is kosher. And to do that, they have to create the parliament that they used to have before. And the parliament, what do you call it? The Sanhedrin that they need to set up back in the temple. The problem with the Sanhedrin, the only place that is allowed to do it is in the temple. That Moses did, and then Aaron did, and then it came down, and then you have the Solomon temple that then housed the Sanhedrin with all the artifacts to go with it, to allow it to be a religious institution. Now that was dismantled 40 years after Jesus was taken up, which was 72, when Jerusalem fell by the Romans. They took it apart. So then you have the diaspora taking place, all the Jews coming in. But in order for all the Jews to accept this new change in thinking and theology, they have to have the Sanhedrin given the edict that then goes into the books that says these are now the new religious laws. So they have to have the temple rebuilt. They have to do that, because otherwise the Sanhedrin have no place for them to go in. They have to have the parliament built for the Jews in order for them to say, we agree now with the new world government.
Okay, but where is this temple to be built?
Right, so they said, let's go and build it somewhere where it's our homeland. Create our homeland. So they had initially either Uganda, I'm not sure, in Africa, but definitely there was in Argentina. They wanted to go there. So they had all the plans going that way. But they made a mistake, because for them to do that, they created a sect called the Zionism. And the Zionism was to pull all the diaspora people, that's all his job is, to pull all the diaspora people, put it into the homeland, or new land, in order for them to build the temple and put the Jewish land again. And for that to take place, they had to bring in the main controllers of governments at that time, who had authority, which were the Christians. So they infiltrated the Christian sects, and they decided to put them under a new banner called Zionism. The problem with Zionism is when they were teaching the Christians to come their way, they said, okay, let's go and read the Torah, the Old Testaments. So as they look at the Old Testament, guess what's inside it? It says Palestine, a region, or not Palestine, it says basically the Jerusalem, and that is the place. So reluctantly, the non-Christians were forced by the Christian Zionists to scrap the African part and scrap what's known Argentina and go into Palestine. And that's why it came out very, very quickly. They didn't have enough time to prepare for it. So they only started nearly after the First World War. The British came, the British in the 1920s, they said, yes, we will sign, we agreed this as part of your support, the Rothschild and various other people's support. We will give Palestine to you. So they agreed that in the 20s. And then everything set up in order to bring the Jews in. Then you had a problem is the fact that the European Jews were not coming. So there was an initiative to push the European Jews out. The only way they could see that happening is actually if they need to slaughter and take their money out. So Hitler obliged. Whereas before, he used to provide all the transportation for them. So a lot of the early movement of Jews were in support of government, the German government. Mm. So as they went in and created it, then they have now to establish in Palestine. That's why they didn't care about the other parts of Palestine. They said, most important is we want close to Jerusalem. But they were not planned and planted enough in Jerusalem, so they did not have full control of it. Mm-hmm. So when they established the first government in 1949, they were not fully in control of Jerusalem. Now, the Christians told them that according to what you have taught us in the scripts, we need to go into Jerusalem, near the Temple Mount. So now there was another drive to move into Temple Mount. You see, the controllers have been driven by the Christian Zionists to go into where they didn't want to go.
Okay, but when you say they're reluctant, I mean, this is very old history and we kind of have to move quickly.
Yes, so what you have to remember is...
But why are you saying they
Yes.
didn't want to go? Who
Yes.
didn't want to go?
Right,
Really,
so-
the original Jews didn't... The Khazars?
No, what you have to remember is everything at that point is run by the Freemasons.
Okay.
So, and then after the Treaty of Illuminati, the Freemason cult introduced quite a lot of building the temple. Whereas before they were worried too much about the pyramids. So you can see now the shift and the pyramids now going into the temple. Into the temple in Jerusalem. Before, they were wanting to go to Egypt in the pyramids. Afterwards, when the Illuminati was signed in 1775, the infiltration within the new orders to the Freemasons. Oh, we need to build the temple now, Solomon's temple, whereas before Solomon's temple didn't exist. So they went into that. Now the problem is, in order to build a new temple and everything, you need to say that you have the right in there, and the whole history supports your version of history. So you have to then go into all these countries and get rid of anything that is not supporting your history. The best way to do it is just to clear it out. And that's what ISIS does. It's basically paid literally by the intelligence services, housed in Turkey, trained in Jordan, logistically by Pakistan, money and what's called religious literature from Saudi Arabia, money from Qatar and Saudi Arabia, and on the ground, day-to-day running by Israel, arms by Americans, intelligence by the British and the Germans and the French, and it just goes on. The original arms came from the Muslim Brotherhood, helping them to take it from Libya. So you can see all of them are working together as a group now. But you can see that there is another controlling group on top that allowed them to take all this together.
Okay, and this controlling group is what is called the Illuminati.
Used to be. The Illuminati, up to a point, existed, was running that. But because of the clash between the internal members of the Illuminati, right, then what you have is the Illuminati breaking up. But why did the internal breaking of the Illuminati take place? Because when they did the 3 world wars, the idea is once you drop a level of support, you must quickly move on to the next one. Because if you give it long enough, the support comes back again after 2 or 3 generations. So they removed the ruling families in the First World War. They were supposed to have finished by the 60s. But because there was a delay, when they removed the first families, the new families came up in 3 generations, 75 years. Each generation 25 years. So by 75 years, you have a new establishment of a ruling family. The Bushes, for example, the Iraqs, everyone where you look, you start having the ruling families again. Because that's the way humanity works. If you remove a ruling family, give it enough 2 or 3 generations, they come back again. These ruling families came back into the Illuminati and they were said, don't destroy my control. But the old family says, who are you? You are just new. So now you have the clashes taking place. When the clash taking place and the fighting, the final war not taking place to split the to split the loot. Then what you have is you have these new guys coming in. Obama was his family, Bush was his family, everybody's coming in with their family and causing all these problems and crashing.